What do you think of when you hear the word judgment? Do you think of it as a character strength? Well, today that's exactly what we're going to do is look at it as one of the 24 character strengths in the values in action character strengths system. Judgment is one of 5 of the positive personality traits in the virtue of wisdom. Of all the traits, these are the ones that help you learn and use ideas and information to enrich your life and become wise. So, judgment, let's start with the actual definition offered by the researchers at the Via Strengths Institute. Judgment is thinking things through and examining them from all sides, not jumping to conclusions, being able to change one's mind in light of evidence, and weighing all evidence fairly. This idea of examining things from all sides, not jumping to conclusions, and actually changing your mind as you learn and take in new evidence, having a fair and ready mind to take in useful information, is a trait I think we all admire. I think one of the most impressive things in the world is to watch an intelligent person hear something they didn't want to hear and learn something from it anyway. So, judgment, is it a strength that you have? If you've taken your VIA Strength survey, you know that your top strengths, your signature strengths, are ones that are essential to who you are. You feel most like yourself when you're using them. They're effortless for you. You don't have to exert a lot of willpower. And they're energizing. When you use a signature strength, you feel stronger, not weaker afterwards. If judgment is one of those for you, you're someone who actually thrives on thinking critically about information, ideas, even the stories you hear or the fiction you read. Often causes your mind to ask questions, to compare, and to notice gaps in reality, in accuracy, and to notice things that don't belong, as well as to see with sharp distinction meaningful facts and ideas. What's great about judgment is that it includes the ability to recognize things like your awareness of your own confirmation bias. There are a lot of cognitive distortions, ways that our brains habitually mistake false stuff for truth. And when you have a strength or cultivate the character strength of judgment, you become mindful of those cognitive biases and you help yourself do better quality thinking and not just fall to the level of habit. So one of the ways that we can all practice the character strength of judgment is to recognize something called confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is a cognitive distortion that says once we think something, we really only look for new evidence that affirms our belief, and we kind of downplay or ignore any new information that would challenge what we already believe. That's confirmation bias. If you use judgment, you continue looking for new ways to have your thinking be challenged, to see new information that might shift your opinion, and to fairly weigh that evidence so that it can come in and enrich your life. Strong judgment actually integrates emotional information. It doesn't mean turning off your feelings to think rationally. I think we talk about that a lot as if that's possible. Someone who really practices judgment notices the information that a feeling, a passion or emotion, a disappointment, an anger, a frustration or excitement, and any emotion that you're feeling is actually more information to feed into your judgment. So if you process your emotional information and integrate it into the facts and the claims and the beliefs that are also part of your thinking, then you actually are strengthening your judgment by using your emotional information. Same thing is true when you have the emotional inputs of other people's behavior. Learning to think into what those feelings and emotions mean can actually strengthen your ability to make wise choices, to plan for the future, and to respond to difficult situations in a wise way. What's difficult for someone with judgment sometimes is to know when they have analyzed information enough. They have enough information to make a wise decision without getting caught in analysis paralysis. One of the practices that everyone with strong judgment really needs to develop, that we all need, is something called satisficing. I read about this, I think, initially with a book by Adam Grant or one of his podcasts. He talked about how happy people who have more satisfaction and less frustration are people who learn to embrace the beauty of good enough, where when they have enough information to make a decision, they go forward. It may not be the best Thai place in all of Southwest Florida, but I like the meal that I get there. It's good enough for me. Satisficing. Same thing when it comes to information about a new piece of technology we may be purchasing, or a choice about an activity we're going to engage in. Learning how to get the right measure of information is something that takes some practice. If you keep taking in the feedback, take in the emotional feedback of how exhausting your last decision was. Say, if I stayed in analysis too long and wore myself and everyone else out about it before I made a decision, maybe next time I don't need quite as much information. So is it possible to overuse the strength of judgment? Let's talk about what excess judgment looks like in practice. Now remember, the strength of judgment is thinking things through and examining from all sides. It's being able to change your mind in light of evidence and weigh all evidence fairly. Sometimes what we call a judgmental person is someone who is failing to practice judgment because they aren't weighing the information fairly. They don't have an open mind to receive more information. Sometimes the person we label as judgmental isn't using judgment at all. So, what's a real overuse of judgment? One of the most frequent overuses I see is indecisiveness. That analysis paralysis can actually signal excess judgment. And what you can do is connect to meaning and practice satisficing to understand how much judgment is necessary, how much analysis is needed before you can come to a meaningful decision. Another form of judgment that can be overuse or destructive is ruminative judgment, where maybe your self-talk becomes very negative, where you keep thinking through and examining all the sides of a past decision or a past bad experience. Ruminative reflection and ruminative analysis can take on a really toxic flavor for you, whether you're doing it internally or you're sharing those words with others. So when that's true, connecting to the other character strengths of hope, of kindness, and different things that shift your focus off of what has happened or the negative situation can move you forward out of a judgmental place toward yourself. Another form of excess judgment can show up in a sense of despair or overwhelm. It's almost a fear-driven form of judgment, where rather than thinking things through and examining them without that jumping to conclusions so that you can move forward wholeheartedly, you're examining things with the predetermined conclusion of, this is bad. Anytime we do that, that's an expression of fear, and that can cause our judgment to go into an overdrive that creates ineffective conclusions for us. So, if we think about judgment in our lives, it's actually one of the most beautiful and useful strengths. It's one of the strengths that will help us face and deal with a lot of the polarization that is so draining in our society today, whether it's what we're exposed to online or even in our live conversations with family and friends. So practice judgment by thinking things through. Some simple practical ways to do this is to broaden your sources for inputs. If you usually listen to one podcast for news, try some other perspectives. By hearing the best expression of the contrasting view, the people you would see as being on the other side from you. If you try to learn and be open to borrowing and incorporating the bits of wisdom that you learn from people who disagree with you, your judgment will become stronger and the polarization will break down as you build genuine bonds across differences of opinion. We hope you've liked this Via Strength Spotlight. You can get your own Values in Action Strength Survey by visiting wildandbrave.com/via. You can learn more about your natural strengths and ways to keep getting stronger. You can take your own Via Strength Survey and learn what your signature strengths are by visiting wildandbrave.com/via. Thanks for visiting and stay wild and brave.